Our lesson for today is taken from the Gospel according to Luke. We are reading from the New Living Translation. And if you wish to follow along, the text is printed in your bulletins. I hope that you follow up because we're going to be considering the scriptures for the lesson today. I don't know if you like Bible-based sermons, but this is a Bible-based sermon, and I hope that you take that to heart. Let us begin verse with 1 in chapter 24. But early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance, so they went in. But they didn't find the body of the Lord Jesus Christ. As they stood there, puzzled, two men suddenly appeared to them, clothed in dazzling robes. The women were terrified and bowed to their face to the ground. Then the man asked, "Why are you looking among the dead for someone who is alive? He isn't here. He is risen from the dead. Remember what he told you back in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be betrayed into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and that he will rise again on the third day." Then they remembered that he had said this. So they rushed back from the tomb to tell his 11 disciples and everyone else what they had happened. It was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and several other women who told the apostles what had happened. But the story sounded like nonsense to the men, so they didn't believe it. However, Peter jumped up and ran to the tomb to look. Stooping, he peered in and saw the empty linen wrappings. Then he went home wondering what had happened. This is the word inspired by God for us, the children of God. Thanks be to God. As you listen to this story, I know that it's a familiar story for all of us. And in many ways, you believe it. Amen? Now, what's the point? What good is it for you to know this story? Yes, it's a story of a man named Jesus, which we worship, and that's why we are all here this fine morning. But what's the point of this story for you? What's the incidence of the resurrection for your life? To some, it's simply the better deal. To others, is the knowledge that death is not the end, and that you hope in the future to have an everlasting life so you don't go to hell. Many people believe in the resurrection simply to avoid hell. And I don't blame you for it. It is a better deal. It's great. But what's the point of the story today for us? Did you know that the resurrection has an applicable lesson, an everyday applicable lesson? And I wish to share this with you. You want to begin? Let us pay attention to verse 1 of Luke 24. In there it says that very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb taking the spices they had prepared. When you read this verse, you must wonder, at what point did the women have the opportunity to prepare the spices, to buy the spices? There is no way. Just on Thursday, they were preparing a banquet, a great meal. At what point did they have time to go to the store, knowing fully well that on Thursday Jesus presents the sacrament of communion, the holy meal, the Last Supper, but he gets arrested that night. On Friday, he spends all day in trial. He gets killed around 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. Then around sundown on Friday begins Sabbath. Everything shuts down. At what moment did the women have the time to prepare? And I say women because men were what? Scared. Oh, they're going to chase me. Let's lock behind closed doors. At what moment did the woman have time to prepare? This is where you need to compare the Gospels. If you pay attention to Mark 16, verse 1, it tells you that Saturday evening, because Sabbath begins on Friday at sundown and ends Saturday at sundown, right after that, the women went to the market to buy what was necessary for them to do what was necessary at that moment. Because in life, sometimes the only thing that you can do is what you can do. Sounds silly, but in life, you can only do what you can. While you can, as often as you can. And so that's the first thing, first base that you need to know about Easter. You can only do what you can as a human being. And sometimes life doesn't slow down. Did you know who cooked the last meal? Probably women. Probably Martha. Yeah. She says that because it's a story where Martha was cooking for our Lord. You see that in the stained glass window. And we can assume, and I know what assuming does, but we can make the informed suggestion that we're women because it's not mentioned in the Bible. I know, by gosh, if it would have been a man, it would have been mentioned, and we will have a saint cook. So I can only make estimate guess. They were busy preparing the meal. And it was only the women who also thought about preparing the body. They were still in shock. I mean, what do you do when after you're in shock that a family? I look around and I know that in many situations, what do you do after your husband, your wife, your child is rushed to the hospital? What can you do when you are at that room and it's lonely? And now you have to face the fact that something that is scary is happening right now. You can only do what you can. Yesterday, I was taking Nico to a baseball game with Dante. And as we are arriving to the dugout, I was late, of course, holding these two kids, getting there. And I went to get the balls for the game from the manager's office. And as I'm walking out of the office, and I want you to be there with me, it's a beautiful day, and I have a bucket of balls. And I'm looking around, and I open the door, and it's bright. Super bright. And the moment that I open the door, I look into the field and I see this 15, 16-year-old boy loading to hit the ball. And I see his little sibling just tossing the ball. You see what's happening now? The ball comes back. The kid is not ready. Hits him in the mouth. And as they're playing and it's hot and the kid has braces, guess what happened? I drop everything. And believe me, I'm not telling you a story to tell you that I am a hero, because I am not. I am just a simple coach that was in the moment, and I propel into action. Why? Because that's what you need to do. The kid, the older one, just mesmerized. Probably not thinking about his brother, but thinking about the trouble he's in. And you know what happened to this 8-year-old? And I know because I used to coach him when he was in 6U. His face, his uniform, everything was just dressed in blood. I rushed to him and I said, Kyle, open your eyes. Kyle, open your eyes. Look at me. Hey, coach, we need to get into the dugout, okay? Lift your chin up, but don't pass out, okay? Walk with me. Can I sit down? No, don't sit down. Let me know you're fine. Can you move? Can you hear me fine? Can you open your eyes? And I say, I know it hurts, but I'm going to need you to man up right now. I need you to spit whatever blood you have on your throat right now, and I want you to walk with me into this scenario. into this place. He spits. Blood is everywhere. That's just to show you that there's always something that you can do. His brother's still in shock, and that's a natural thing to happen. So no shame on the older brother. He's still embarrassed, knows that he's in trouble, knows that his father is going to yell at him because that child had braces and his foot was missing. His tooth was missing, one of the adult ones. I know, right? It happens. I know that some of you have been in that situation when someone is hurt. What do? There is always something that you can do. Go get some ice. Spit. I want to see what's happening. Are you still with me? Yes. Good. What do you think is like cooking for your Lord and then seeing and hearing the news of his arrest and that he's going to get killed on the cross? What do you think that does to a heart? And yet someone had the courage to go to the market after Sabbath to do what you could, because there is no point of just going down. That's the first thing. That's the first base for Easter. Despite the circumstances, despite the pain, despite the suffering, despite the gore and the blood and the fear of death, there is always something that you can do. There's always something that you can do to move forward. Despite the challenges of life, there's always something that you can do. You ready to go second base? Sometimes there are things that you can do, and then there are things that you cannot do anything about. You have to account for the things beyond your control. That's second base for you. If first base is you can do something, second base, know that there are things that you cannot do anything about. When you read Luke 24, you will see that verse 2 says that they found that the stone had been rolled away. However, when you compare Mark 16, verse 3, you will see that behind their mind, the women were knowing and understanding that there was a huge stone that needed to be moved. And they didn't know how it was going to get moved. And they still went on. They still went on moving forward with what they could do. Because the thing that you cannot do, you cannot do. But there's always something that you can do until you are met with that big stone before you. The reality is that only you can do what you can, and you need to account for the things that are beyond your control. When he opened his mouth, and after the blood was gone, I saw that tooth moving way too much. The brace was bended. There's only so far that I can do, right? For that, you're going to have to go to the dentist. What? I know. These are my new braces. Don't you worry about it. That's something for your dad to worry about. Right? There's only things that you can do, and there are things that you cannot do. I want you to know and cement this idea that the women knew that there are things that they could do, and there are things that they could not do, but the things that they couldn't do did not stop them from doing the things that they could do. You ready for third base? Know that when you are aiming for the hot corner, God's presence will be there. I'm going to give you 3 scriptures, though, for you to know more of the presence of God and how it shows up. When you pay attention to Luke 24, verse 4, it says that 2 men were there suddenly. However, when you pay attention to Mark 16, verse 5, you will see that only young man was there. Only one. But if you pay attention to Matthew 28, you will see there is no mention of one or the other, but he's mentioned the presence of God. Matthew 28, verse 2 begins to say, "Suddenly there was a great earthquake, showing you the presence of God. For an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside the stone, and sat on it, like owning it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was white as snow." Why? Because Matthew is written for the people of Jewish tradition who knew and needed to know the presence of the Father. That's why there's such a show of strength in Matthew 28, because of the audience. Now, many will say that this is evidence of why the Bible is fake. Why? Because there are 3 different accounts. I will tell you this, though. I just told you of my account of what happened to Kyle with his brother. However, if you were to ask Kyle what happened, he will tell you a completely different story. But if you ask the brother who hit the ball, he will have a completely different story. I didn't load. I didn't even hit it that hard. This only shows you of the reality of God. The Bible would be fake if the story would be the same. But this one shows you the different perspective to our benefit. To our benefit. The only thing that all these 3 stories have in common is that God shows up. Not to the benefit of Jesus, because the stone was not rolled to allow Jesus to get out. The stone was rolled so that we could go into the tomb and see that was empty. So, 3 things. Do what you can. Account for the things beyond your control, and trust that God is going to be revealed. But now you're sitting on 3rd. You're so close to the home plate, but you haven't scored yet. There's one thing that you have to ask yourself that gets you all the way home. Don't look for the living among the dead. That takes you home. Don't waste your time in things that drive you away from the living, from things of purpose, everlasting purpose. In times like this, when I have this subject in hand, I remember a good story when I was a lawyer. I remember that I had just beginning to work with Judge Ojito. That's his last name. It was a criminal judge in Barranquilla. And I wanted to buy my outfit. And I remember there was these Ferragamo loafers that I wanted to buy. And if that means nothing to you, good for you. They are $800 loafers. You don't need to have them. They are so uncomfortable. They are not nice. They are horrible. But at that moment, I said, "Hey, honey," I was dating a girl, not my wife. But I said, "Hey, what color should I get?" You know what she says? "You're going to use them both. Buy them both." And I remember that I had to pay $200 to get them from Miami to Barranquilla. And I remember it was okay to spend $2,000 in 2 pairs of shoes. To do what? To be what? My friends. This is nothing but a silly example of putting and looking for life among the dead. So why do we put so much effort on happiness with money, when we know that only the love of money leads to the wrong thing? And now, again, that's nothing to shadow the profession of being a lawyer. It's a wonderful profession to help your brothers and sisters. If you know a lawyer, you will get that call that says, "Hey, what do you think about this? What is the rule about this?" Being a lawyer is a great profession, but there's a darkness to it, just like there is a darkness to any profession. ministry. It's just as ugly, really. To use the scriptures for your own purposes. There is plenty of people that do that. Doctors, they do the same thing. Teaching, same thing. There is no good or bad profession. What there is a good or bad use of that profession. How many of us think success is count for money in the bank? How many of us think that beauty is only in the outside and we fail to look at the heart of the person? At that moment, I want you to consider, why do we look for the things that give life among the things that take life away? Why are we continue looking for the living among the dead? Christ is not among the dead. You have to remember what Christ has already taught you. Pay attention to Mark 16, verse 7. Now go and tell his disciples, he says, the angel says to the women, including Peter. Do you know why Peter is important? Do you know what Peter just did? Denied Jesus 3 times. Now, Peter has spent a lot of time with Peter, and Peter just denied Jesus. Do you know why it was important for Peter to know this message? So that he wouldn't continue to beat himself down. That Jesus is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there just as he told you before he died. If you pay attention to Matthew 28, you will see that, and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead and he's going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Remember what I have told you. Remember what you already know. Remember that while that ball hit you straight in the mouth and you lost a tooth and you're bleeding and it hurts, not everything is lost. So right now you have 2 choices, Kyle. Right now you have 2 choices. You can be afraid of the ball, or you can remember that you're not made of cardboard or paper or glass. Because you want to know the truth? Kyle did not go down. An 8-year-old just took a huge hit to his mouth, lost a tooth, but he did not go down. He did not go down and roll. He did not go down and curse his brother. No. He was just there, taking it in. And if an 8-year-old can do that, you can do that too. And that is the message of the resurrection, my friends, that you are not made of paper, that you're not made of glass, that God has given you life, everlasting purpose, and that there's things that you can do, there's things that you cannot do anything about, but that you need to know that God always shows up when you are in the hot corner. But the question that takes you home is for you not to waste your life in things that take life away. There are opportunities for you to enhance your life today, and they often happen in the worst day of your life. In the worst days of your life, open your eyes, for God is surely to be revealed. God reveals God's self in good days, in the beautiful days. Yes, absolutely. God is always revealing himself to us. But the evidence of God is clearly or surely shown to us in the worst days of our life. My friends, the message that takes you home is for you not to invest your life in things that lead to death. Christ is risen. And he's giving you the opportunity for you to do something, for you to realize that there are things that you cannot do anything about, but for you to be assured, to trust that God will be revealed when you need him the most. the resurrection message for today is that you ought to stop investing your life in things that lead to nothing. My friends, Christ is risen. He's risen indeed. Amen.